Hello everyone. I wanted to welcome you all to another standalone model building using FreeCAD and other than the beginner series. On this one, this model is downloaded from a website called 3D CAD Exams, and this model looks complex enough for me to give it a try on a weekend and see actually what's going on. How can I build it with my beginner's knowledge on FreeCAD? So as you can see in the corner, this is a really not so complex, but complex enough for a beginner's perspective. And in my mind, I divided the whole model in basically three parts. The center circular, or rather cylindrical part, in my opinion, is the base one. So I'm building that one now, and my thought process is once I build that, I can go around with these other limbs that we have, and you can see there are four other limbs, so to speak, extra parts or extensions to this model, and three of them out of those four extensions are the same thing. So I will build the center cylindrical part first, and then go about with one of those three extensions and see if I can replicate them. And at the last, I will handle the third part where it has an overhang with a conical shape on top of it. So that's my thought process, and my trial would be to actually build them individually and then maybe put them together using Boolean operation or so. Oh, I forgot to mention, within this experience of pretty short while, say 2 months or three maybe, between part design and part, I really like the part design workbenches. How it has the capability to do it more user friendly. So keyword user friendly. Part design workbench is pretty user friendly in my opinion. However, part workbench provides me all the flexibilities. Not much of user friendly compared to part design, but the flexibilities that I need to do the Boolean operations here and there, and then manipulate those parts individually whenever I want in the process of this model building. Part workbench provides me that flexibility throughout the process. One of the models that I was working on, I wanted to go back and then modify one of my extrudes, and part design wasn't doing that. Like, no, I don't play that. So part actually provides me with that opportunity. So that's why on this project I'm using part workbench all throughout the process. There are some parts that I need to manipulate at some point in future, and then I don't want to lose that possibility, or like the potential, using part design just for user friendliness. So there you go. My preference is between part design and part. It's a constant battle in my mind, which one to use, which one not to use, because I like part design for its user friendliness, but part for this one is the one. So here on the cylindrical part, I already built the cylinder. Now I'm trying to build the top decorations, so to speak. There are like two levels of things laid out on this first part, and I want to build a sketch for the entire thing, then use part of that sketch at different progression and use them in my advantage. So I want to sketch the whole thing and then leave the initial part that I'll be using, and rest of them becomes construction geometry. So that's why I'm spending so much time now building up the sketch. the first part I'll go with the left side depression that will go a little deeper than the right side depression, that half circle. But it is important for me to actually sketch it out before I go ahead and then do the extrude and cut and stuff like that. So the measurements are like pretty simple to understand. One thing though, I was surprised to see where it looks like a Chicago bean part. It only took one dimensions to get fully constrained. I was like, wow, it looks really complex, but it only took one measurement to get fully constrained. So that was surprising. Now I'm debating that 1.5 millimeter thickness, how to put that. The first thing was to go with the already provided dots vertically on the vertical axis, and something played out in my mind. I said like, no, maybe they are not tangent enough. So I'm putting two dots on the horizontal axis, and then I'll provide the dimension on that one. Looking back to this process, I should have been fine to do it on the vertical axis, that 1.5 millimeter. It should have been fine. So that's like 30 seconds of extra effort that I didn't need it. So maybe once I grow the experience on this field, I'll save that few minutes in future projects. So as I said, I built this entire sketch, and then part of it became construction geometry because I didn't want to handle that. Right now I only want to handle part of it. So the bright green part would be the first extrude that I want to handle, and then I figured I maybe can use this screw hole at the same time, so I won't have to come back and then use this sketch for third time. So I should have been fine without even doing it. I can come back and then do that, but it's efficient for me to actually do it right now rather than coming back later on. And I do this every now and then because that thinking power, that imaginative power it takes to actually build a model, I know some people has it like pretty good. I have to come back and then update my thought process every now and then. On this extrude part and extrude part, I found it really I could not see where I could press the reverse button beforehand and then take it my way. Sometimes it works, sometimes it goes in a reverse direction. So that's a constant battle on part workbench, when to press the reverse when I'm extruding something. And so most of the time I come back and then reverse it, looking after the extrusion is happened. So now I take the extrusion downward and then do a Boolean operation to cut that part away, and there goes my first step. And I wanted to rename all my extrudes, all my parts, so I can come back and actually know which one I'm using later on, because like 10 minutes later there will be 4 or 5 more of these parts, and then I want to know which one was which one so I can reuse them later on. Speaking about reusing the later on, so I'm thinking I'll probably reuse this sketch that I just developed 4 or 5 more times throughout the process. So I wanted to copy it right now and then save it so that I don't mess it up later on when there are like 5 more sketches there, and then I keep going back and forth which one is the one that I want to copy. So I want to copy them right now and then maybe use them later on when I need. So that's what I'm doing. I'm taking some of the construction geometries, making like the one that I already used, that part I'm making a construction, and then take the rest of the part which I will be using right now. So it's a step-by-step process. I just have to keep track of which part that I worked on already and which part I want to work on. As I said, it takes a bit of imaginative power, and I am working on being more imaginative. Maybe I should have studied art. Anyway, so there goes my second part. I could do it with the first one and then maybe come back to update the depth of the extrude. I thought this would be easier if I just went ahead and then do it right now. So I want to extrude the outer part and then come back one more time to work on my screw holes. I don't know what's the mechanical language for those. Like the hole you provide to hold a nut, a bolt. I'm sorry, a bolt. So bolt hole. I don't. I'm not a mechanical engineer, so that's a lacking. I definitely have to put it out there before I go forward. Now I can come back to actually use this time to update my bolt holes. There will be 4, and I know that original drawing calls for threaded bolt holes. Um, at this expertise level for me right now, I'm thinking maybe I can leave that threading part for a later project. So I'm just going with plain old cylindrical bore for all 4 of those. You can see 3. Well, in a minute I'll come back to actually include the 4th one, and so I don't have to actually use another extrude to use the 4th hole. So that was something I should have thought first one. So I take this sketch down to a level on our second extrude and then go from there. So I will build it up and then cut it away. So there is your 3 bolt holes, and then at this moment I thought, no, I could have included the 4th one too. So that's the 3rd one. The 4th one you can see on the left side, which I should have included first. So that one, let's go fix that. I remember here I thought, oh, I lost my sketch. Where is my sketch? And then I see, oh, I have to update the section view for this. So that 4th hole was easy. Just I had to make that construction geometry a regular one, and then boom. So that's the end of my first step. That center part is done. That was the tougher one for me. Now I'm thinking I should go make one of these 3 and then maybe copy them later on. I'll be honest with you, I think there is a better way to actually build this entire model and then copy and rotate them in place. The whole thing, somehow it got confused in my mind, so I built the pad, the lower pad, which I am working on right now, and then you reuse that 2 more times. After that, the vertical wall on those 3 extensions, I use them all together. Like, so this is a 2-step process that I used. Maybe there is a better way to actually do it in one step. So I'm building the pad. It has these slots in there. I wanted to embed them right now, and boy, that dimensions were really hidden away. It took me about more than 4 minutes to actually sort these slots dimensions, because the map, that plan didn't have them straight away. They were hidden here and there. I felt like I was solving a puzzle finding these dimensions, because one of them dimension was here, and the right next one obviously should have come to the next one. It's somewhere else. I had to do some calculations. But so there I'm almost done. I need to just fix the radius and then see how far it is from the corner. So 2 more degrees of freedom. One is from lateral, how far it is, and then one from the vertically, how far down it will come. Once that I figured it out, it was easy. So I built that part up and then use the angular dimensions on the part, on the part details data tab to rotate it 2 times. I built this middle part because the angle would be easy for me. So one would be positive 90 degree and one would be negative 90 degree. So I thought maybe I should go with the middle one and then copy them 2 times, update the angle. It would be easier. I could have I could have done with any of those, 3 of those. So no particular reason to start on the middle one. Just a preference. It would be 90 degree positive and negative 2 times. So I'm done with the sketching. I want to build it up with, I think it was 10 millimeter thickness. Before that, it was a good idea to actually renaming these sketches and object parts. It really pays off, especially when I'm doing an hour long process. It really pays off to actually rename everything as they, so I can come back and actually read that name and know what it is that I'm working on. As I said, this height came from a calculation. I didn't know actually how thick it was, so I wanted to measure it and said, oh, that's a 20 millimeter pad. So that's a 20 millimeter pad. One part done. I have to build a wall. Before that, I want to copy them 2 times and update the angle. Maybe next time I'll figure out how to actually build that particle wall before I do this copy paste. That would be much easier for me actually to go. So save probably 5 more minutes in the process that I could have done if I knew how to handle 2 bodies and then maybe rotate them away. I'm sure there is a way. I just have to figure it out. And the plan calls for a rounded corner of this vertical wall part. I thought I can do it with fillet. Now about fillet, as I said in one of the previous videos, fillet is not the strongest side of FreeCAD, especially on part workbench. I have had multiple experiences where the fillet tool was not performing to my expectations. Maybe again, being a beginner, I don't know how to handle that part yet, but I found that fillet tool, I would have to be really careful about it, especially when there is carved surfaces around, like on the straight part, on the corner and the orthogonal surfaces. It's easy, but curved surfaces like on a cylinder and circular extrude, I'd have to be really careful with this fillet tool. So I'm leaving that fillet part for later on. I don't want to do it in the middle of the object building and then mess it up. So although plan calls for like a rounded corner on the end of these vertical walls, just know that it's there. We will work on them later on. One more thing on this model as it shows right now, you see the corner points is a little odd to see. It's a little big. It's done on purpose. So standard, the size is like 2 as it comes, not standard like by default, but I made those corner points as 8 because it makes it easier for me to select them and then work on them. So at the end of the process, I'll bring them back to 1 or 2. By the way, I already started working on my third part, finished the second part. The third part is the overhang. I'll be honest with you. These dimensions were so working like a puzzle. I almost messed it up here. So I thought it would be something, and then actually turned out to be a different thing. I'll understand that in like maybe in 30 seconds in the process on the video. So just know that right now, as it looks, a fully constrained model sketch, which in fact is not what the drawing asks for. It looks a little short and a little blunt at the end. I understand that when I place the next object, the conical shape, and that gives me the feeling, oh, it doesn't look right. So, and then I go back and then check again for the dimensions. Specifically on this project, the dimensions were like, yeah, that stuff. Anyway, for this part, this segment, you see, it becomes over constrained. It took me a minute to actually figure it out. So I need to bring this point to that part, and it wasn't taking it. Something was over constraining it. So and then I figured like maybe I should pick a different point. So I picked a different point and then placed the constraints. That finally worked out. So good on that. And this sketch is at the top of what it should be. So I'll have to build it down with the reverse button. Oh, that reverse worked this time and I was really happy. Now I'll have to work on the top part, the most top part of this object, which is the conical shape. And it took me a minute to actually understand how to handle that. If you see the cross section of that part, that conical shape is cut away, so it's cone outside, it's cone inside, but the outside cone has the top part of this extrude is the base of the outside cone, whereas the inside cone, the cutaway, has its base on the downside of this overhang. So I thought maybe I could use these primitives in my advantage. So I give the radius on both sides and then work on the height and update the height as it's like as they come around. So here it was mostly trial and error to see actually how high I want to go and how to make them located at the right point. At this point, actually renaming that sketch, it paid off because I had to go and then actually look on the distance, how far I wanted to go, especially on the y-axis, because that's where the center of these cones should be matched with the bottom extrude. So you can see what I was talking about. Placing this cone gave me a feeling like I did not do everything right on the previous sketch. And one thing was, I was thinking the cone that I just placed should be the inner one, and that should actually look kind of like right. It doesn't look right now on the radius of the outside extrude and the radius of the cone. Looks like they are not getting along. So that was the feeling where I saw maybe I should go back and update my sketch on the previous part. And I was going back and forth on which parameter to update, because on that part the puzzle really got me. And finally I figured it out. The distance between these 2 points were given, and I said, why bother calculating, I'll just give the distance up there. So that's the center of the cone as well as the center of that round part of the extension. So those two centers will be coincident, and that's 225 millimeter from the most left end. Okay, let's see if it worked out. It did, but the cone is not at the right place. Remember, I was doing transform to take it back and forth, and then place it, and I think I thought maybe I should go back to the sketch and then get that exact distance to the center, embed that center under the cone, and that would make it like accurate enough. It would be much easier for me if the plan gave away this distance from the beginning. It did not, and then it was hidden here and there, and that made it like really difficult for me to actually. Maybe that's where expertise come in, you know. If I was doing it for like 10 years, I would figure it out right away. So that's why people tell every now and then, you cannot get expertise from your book. You have to earn it. So as I said, the height of the cone, I think I got it right this time. I want to place it at the right place. I'll be cutting it away from this part, from this extension, as well as the next part that's coming in. It looks right now. It feels about right. So this is that upper cone, the outside cone. So between the outside of the existing cone and the inside of this new cone that I'm placing will be actually our object. And also this was the first time I'm using this conical shape in the primitive part, so it was a learning curve for me. Like the first one, it took me some time to figure it out. For the second one, you'll see it was at least a bit easier to actually know what to do when it comes to primitive, especially conical shape. And cones has never been my favorite shape in the 3D part. They require more precision to work on. So that now you can see the outside cone matches with that extension, that overhang part. Now it would be easier for me to actually do the Boolean operation, but before I do the cut, I want to actually take this overhang and the outside cone, make them unique, then I do the cut, so that's I don't have to do it twice. And also you saw me doing the refine from time to time. I found out if I don't do the refine every now and then, later on it sticks. It just that the lines stay there. So I decided every time I do a Boolean operation, I will do a refine. That way my model will be clean. The additional lines that I don't want them here, they won't stay there. So now that we are done with that critical part, the critically complex part, I'm dealing with this reinforcement of this cone, and I found out it's not that easy as well, because that part actually goes against that inclined wall of this cone, and I had to be creative on how to actually get that sorted out. And also you can see that I did it on the first time. Actually it was my third time doing it. So couple trial and error was involved in figuring out how to build this wall the way that I wanted. And I decided finally I don't want to leave it for the filleting, because that would not be ideal for this case. With this inclined right side, the fillet tool may not perform to my expectation. So I decided I'll just go with the plain old Boolean operation here and make that wall inclined right now. At the beginning of this project, I thought building this reinforcing wall would be the easier part. The buttress would be easier part in the whole process, but it was not. It was equally complex for me as the building the cones and stuff, because every time there is a wall that's inclined, or like something that has non-standard planes involved, it just adds to the complexity of that part. And this project, at least on the upper part of this project, is everything on inclined in 2D and 3D planes. Conical shapes, inclined wall, it was not easy. Looks like I got the hang of this reversed button on the extrude part. It worked 2 times out of 4 or 5 times, I believe. Yes. I want to make them apart before I do the whole thing. So that's my modular part. So I've got one fusion, that's the third part, and I already added these two together. So I made them together all the way. Okay, so you see now I'm going about with these corner fillets, and it comes as 25mm radius, and I know that there are like 8 more corners that comes with a different radius. So I did it in 2 steps actually, and maybe I should have done another one fillet, but I just go find this corner and then update the radius manually. So that was 6 more times doing this, and that's our basic shape. That's building the shape, and then let me take care of these points there. It looks clean now. That is the final model. I hope you enjoyed this process. I want to see you on my next video. Have a good one. Bye.